Where does Apple stand in 2019 with Project Titan? Earlier in January, it didn't look too good because Tim Cook removed 200 employees off the project without any explanation to the public as to why, whether the project had been scrapped, have they canceled it altogether, or are they adapting it to just be more research-based than just software-based, or could Apple legitimately be one of those companies considering competing with Tesla? As crazy as it sounds that a company that makes watches, phones, and AirPods could suddenly want to compete in the automotive industry, think about the type of wealth and the type of cash that Apple has on hand, definitely way more than Tesla does, which means theoretically everything Tesla has achieved for themselves between the Gigafactory, the charger network, the Roadster, the Semi, the Model 3, Model S, everything they've built could technically have been done with Apple's budget as well, meaning that there is still lots of things up in the air, lots of possibilities for what Apple's Project Titan could become. But today we'll be talking about the most up-to-date leaks on it because personally, as the smartphone industry has grown a lot over the past 10 years, and we've seen very drastic changes and big upgrades, I'm under the belief that the smartphone era has had its peak. Smartphones are still going to be important and useful for our daily lives. However, the amount of changes you saw in the past 10 years are not going to be as noticeable or as major as the changes in the smartphone industry for the next 10 years. However, where you will see a large amount of design change and a lot of legal battles, software battles, with technology growing the most drastically, I think, is in the automotive industry, mostly because of what Tesla has already set out and accomplished and is yet to accomplish in the upcoming years. So the automotive industry is basically, what I'm trying to say, the next big thing where you're going to see the most amount of innovation and a whole lot of aggressive competition. So without further ado, let's talk Project Titan. So first of all, there actually have been a few developments in Project Titan recently. Apple is reportedly trying to buy out a company known as Drive.ai, which for those of you who don't know is an American startup company that primarily focuses on working on software that develops artificial intelligence for self-driving cars. Like certain articles have already detailed, this is going to be a acqui-hire deal, which for those of you who don't know basically means that they're essentially trying to take everyone who works at Drive.ai, or at least a substantial number of the employees there, and hire them for their own Project Titan, which for those of you who may not know is Apple's top secret name that's not really that top secret for their self-driving car concept. Apple has a lot of top secret projects. They do a lot of research and development into things that may or may not see the light of day. As Apple is known for saying, there's 1,000 no's for every yes, so there's still a very good chance that there might not ever be a car that comes out made by Apple. But if there is, all of that development is being done under what we call right now Project Titan. And while Apple will not be getting any of the intellectual property from Drive AI, they could end up hiring a lot of the employees that have worked on it, inferring that yes, of course, Apple's car, if they end up releasing one, is likely going to be equipped with all kinds of self-driving technology. And the fact that they're looking to make this purchase of hiring lots of other employees from outside of Apple shows that Project Titan is still ongoing. They're still researching, they're still developing, and willing to spend plenty of money to figure out what is possible. So given this is mostly a software development startup, that could mean Project Titan won't exactly be a hardware vehicle made by Apple, but perhaps Apple is going to be partnering with other automakers out there and just control the software, make a car OS, as you could call it, for them to develop the self-driving tech, the ease of use with the user interface to make everything simple and easy to understand. But they may end up partnering with some other car company so that someone else with lots of dealerships and lots of factories and lots of car selling experience, they can handle the hardware, the engines, the electrical side of it. I imagine Apple being as green as the company as they brag about, this will likely be an electric vehicle. They're probably investigating different companies that are working on their own EVs to just kind of insert themselves into the equation and say, hey, by the way, now we're handling car OS for a different car company. Even though Apple is usually the company to be known for designing the hardware and software together, I think it's fair to say, though, an entire car is a very different equation than just Apple designs the hardware for the Apple Watch and the software. Getting into the hardware department of designing an entire automotive vehicle, that's far more complex than a smartwatch or a phone, far more dangerous. There's far more laws to abide by. Not to mention the manufacturing process is incredibly more complicated for a car, particularly an electric vehicle with self-driving tech equipped inside, than it is to get a whole factory to design a specific kind of iPhone. Apple already has an infrastructure for all kinds of iPads, MacBooks, iMacs, AirPods even at this point. So that infrastructure they're comfortable with. But moving into the era of building factories or buying out factories factories that will produce a specific type of hardware vehicle, that is quite complicated, and look at Tesla as an example. Think about the timeline it took from releasing the Model 3 to the point that they had manufactured enough Model 3s to the point that they had also built a factory that was capable of producing the Model 3 on a good enough scale that they could open the Model 3 purchasing options on their website to everyone and get deliveries shrunken down to just a couple weeks. That all took years. It was not something that happens within one 12-month cycle like it does with the latest generation iPhone. The only reason I'm highlighting this is I understand there's a lot of you out there that says, no, Apple's always designed the hardware and software to work together. They did it for the iPhone, they did it for the MacBooks, they did it for the AirPods. Why wouldn't they do it with a car? Well, a car is a lot more complicated. There's a lot more parts, particularly if it's an electric vehicle. So that's why I think the likelihood of Apple partnering with another car company to develop self-driving tech that's safe and the software is really well designed like it is on iOS, however, leaving the hardware development in charge of another company might be a lot more likely in this instance. However, to entertain and kind of give you the idea that maybe, just maybe, Apple could be developing their own hardware vehicle, as in they don't partner with Volkswagen like they did earlier this year, who provided them with lots of test vehicles for their self-driving equipment. Let's just say Apple decides to pull a Tesla, if you will, and start developing their own hardware. That means brand new car design that we haven't seen before, built inside and out by Apple. That means they have to build their own factories or buy out old factories and dedicate them just to building their own hardware, your own Apple-made seats and interior and windshield and everything. Let's just hope the steering wheel comes with this, as I'm sure a ton of you are already memeing. Apple cars, $100,000, steering wheel, $10,000. Yeah, you're very funny, okay? But if any of you were hoping out there that Apple was developing their own hardware actual vehicle, I can't absolutely say there's no evidence of that, because Apple did recently pass a patent for an electric vehicle concept that has some interesting details in it. Now, before I get into the details, let me remind you again, patents do not guarantee products. In fact, looking back throughout history, around 80% of the patents Apple passes never end up making it into a finalized product. This is the reason I hesitate to make videos when there's just a patent that says, oh, Apple's gonna do full screen Touch ID on the next iPhone, and then all of the YouTubers run with that as if it's been decided on. Absolutely no. The R&D department does all kinds of stuff on products that will never see the light of day. That includes the folding phone, when you guys went nuts after finding out, oh, Apple passed a patent for a display that bends back and forth. That doesn't guarantee a foldable phone's coming out. All it means is R&D department's thinking about it, they're testing it out, and if they test it out and find all the problems that the Galaxy Fold has, then yeah, they won't end up releasing it. So the whole reason I'm telling you all this stuff is basically I don't want you to get your hopes up that a patent somehow confirms a product is coming out. It usually never does. There's a lot of things that we see in finalized products that we actually never saw in patents, and of course there's tons of patents that never see the light of day. But if this ends up being real, Apple has recently passed a patent for a redesigned car door mechanism, which of course, this is not a patent being saved for the next gen iPhone. And they also designed a patent for a battery laced floor, kind of similar to what we already have on Tesla vehicles today. Apple's working on a design that would lace the bottom of the car with lithium batteries, and it goes into a little bit of detail about how they would design the panels to separate the batteries on the floor of the car so that in the event of a crash, the panels would absorb the majority of the blow and not do any damage to the battery. The other car door design is a little bit different from what most of us see on car doors. It has a picture, but it's basically detailing their hinge doors, but without a traditional pillar. So this has more of a diagonal support section than what most car doors have. It's kind of hard to explain how this would be different, but clearly Apple's think different policy of design is applying to the Project Titan as well. And literally all this confirms is that there's at least a few people, maybe even just 5 or 10 employees, that are working on a custom built hardware vehicle designed by Apple, which personally I'm very terrified of, because seeing how Apple prices their monitors and their pro class equipment, and the fact that Apple's ideology is all based around being the best, not the most affordable, not the cheapest, or not getting their products into the most amount of hands as possible. They just want to focus on being the best. This makes me both very excited to see what a hardware developed Apple vehicle would look like and how it would work, and also very scared to what market exactly are they going to cater this towards. A lot of people were upset with my video on the Pro display and the Mac Pro because they kept saying, Drew, you're not the market for it, when I feel like you guys didn't even watch the video. The whole message of the video is, no, I know there's a market for it. For the people it's catered towards, it's a great deal and they'll be very happy with it. My issue was that market they were catering towards was incredibly small, not a ton of people looking for more affordable reference monitors. You know how many YouTubers out there were editing all their videos on $40,000 reference monitors? No, not that many. And you know why? Because it didn't make a difference. They didn't care. But now suddenly that Apple enters the market with their reference monitor, all of a sudden they're all justifying it. Oh yeah, we need reference monitors to work. We need that for color correction. Haven't needed it the past 5-6 years, even though they've been available. Well, I guess they're just too expensive. Yeah, those terribly inaccurate 5K iMac displays. I can't edit my videos on there. It's just too inaccurate. I need that extreme color saturation and dynamic range so that I can make my videos look really good for people who are gonna watch it on their phones anyway. Anyway, side tangent. All that proved though is that Apple is okay with making things very, very expensive and very, very high-end as long as it's the best in class for a very, very high-end demographic. That's kind of what worries me about Apple developing their own car. I'm sure they're gonna make it look cool, they're gonna make it aerodynamic, they're gonna make it unique, they're gonna make it their own and have a ton of interesting features we wouldn't see on any car before it, but they're probably not too concerned with the starting price, meaning if you were looking to buy a Tesla Model 3, you were saving up money for that, don't hold off on the Model 3 purchase just because there's rumors of Apple developing their own car, because I personally think there's a very heavy chance that an Apple car would start well over $100,000, perhaps even over $200,000, because as we've found before, Apple doesn't care about making the most popular monitor or making the most popular smartphone. They just want to make the best one out there, even if that means it's the most expensive. Knowing Apple's ideologies and their pricing choices to make sure they go that little extra mile, even though it makes the product twice the price, the Apple car will not be starting at a Model 3 competitive price point with the competition. Apple's going to experiment with the interest in this field by launching a car that's incredibly expensive but has a ton of cool features, and it will not be meant for everyone at all. The other interesting part of this discussion that a lot of people end up asking me, so Drew, let's say Apple makes an Apple car, let's say they release one. Would the Apple sheep, Talos of Tech, would he be getting the Apple branded car, or would you still stick with a Tesla, which I plan on buying one next year? Well, as much as I deem myself as the Apple sheep, I'm gonna have to say the Tesla is going to be the better option for multiple reasons, but the important thing to remember is Project Titan is still years away from being released. Absolutely, the Apple car is not coming out next year. Probably not even coming the year after that, because as soon as Apple just unveils the thing, similar to the Model 3, it'll probably take 2 to 3 years just to get it manufactured to a point where everyone is able to readily purchase it. So we're talking 4 to 5 years from now when Apple actually would release this vehicle. In 4 to 5 years, can you imagine where Tesla is going to be by the time Apple just drops the first most expensive but really cool looking car? By that point, the Model 3 is likely going to be even cheaper than it is now. The Tesla charger network is going to be even more expansive as they open up a new charge station every week. Imagine how many there will be 5 years down the road. Plus later this year, we're gonna see the Tesla pickup truck unveiling. We're gonna see the Model Y hit the market in just a year or two. Tesla's going to be flooding the competition for anyone who's interested in autonomous vehicles or switching to electric vehicles or switching to a vehicle that gets software updates regularly and has the ability to get better and improve features and become a full self-driving vehicle, level 5 autonomy in just 3 to 4 years down the road. All that tech is going to be so drastically far ahead by the time Apple even just enters the market with their car, which will likely cost $150,000 and be catered more towards people who bought the Model X or the Model S. But in 4 to 5 years, I guarantee you the Model 3 and the Model Y are likely going to be 80 to 90% of Tesla's purchases. That's what everyday people, that's what most people are going to end up buying. So Apple may enter the market with a car down the road, but it's going to be a small sliver of the market, and the support network, the charger stations you have that support Tesla across the country and across the globe are going to be far more plentiful. The affordability of a Tesla will be far more obtainable, and plus, personally, I'm having a really hard time understanding what exactly can Apple do differently that will make its car so much better than a Tesla. Having driven one myself, I can confidently say the ideals, the design approach, the design choices that both Apple and Tesla make, while they make different products, they are very, very similar companies in regards to keeping things minimal, keeping things clean. Even their downsides, Apple is not too friendly when it comes to repairability, and neither is Tesla. Simultaneously, they have very, very similar ideals, even though they're in completely different markets. Smartphones versus smart cars. I mean, if you just look at the user interface on a Tesla, it looks like Apple designed it. it. In fact, a ton of the engineers and software developers for Tesla are actually former employees of Apple. The company shares a lot of similar design choices, so that's my biggest question moving forward, is even though I'm probably not going to buy the Apple car because I know how expensive it's going to be, what can Apple do differently from Tesla that would make their car worth it? If you're asking yourself, well, maybe they should just combine forces and perhaps Apple should just buy Tesla and then they can work together. Well, you maybe have missed the news, but Apple already tried. In fact, way back in 2013, they wanted to buy out Tesla for more than it's worth in 2019, $240 a share. This would be one of the most massive company buyouts in history. And Tesla said no because I think Apple was hoping to push Elon Musk out of the equation, which is not what you do. Do you remember when you pushed Steve Jobs out of Apple? Yeah, that didn't go very well, did it? You had to beg him to come back and he saved you. Now Apple's doing pretty well without him, but not by choice because he sadly passed away. But you can't take Elon Musk out of Tesla. As much as he may be bad for shareholders or appear on YouTube meme shows one too many times, or as bad as a speaker he is at presentations, you need Elon Musk, you need that visionary, you need that founder to be at least in the engineering department at Tesla. So Apple hopefully could reconsider in 2019 or 2020 and realize that no, they don't stand a chance against Tesla's infrastructure, their factories, the battery development. They can't compete with what Tesla's already built. Apple's best case scenario is really attempting to buy them out. Don't try to put Elon Musk out of the equation. Just let Tesla keep doing what they're doing, but maybe provide some better iOS Siri optimization, I guess. Basically buy them out and give them the resources, give them the money, give them the customer support that they desperately need right now, because Tesla, money-wise, has not been doing the best. But if Apple doesn't buy them out and they go bankrupt, someone else will for sure. There's no reality I can imagine where Tesla ends up not staying alive as a company. They're definitely here for the long run, and I don't think Apple, with all their money and with all their power, could even achieve half of what Tesla has achieved in the past 10 years, and what they're going to achieve in the next 5 to 10 years. Anyway, this is a fascinating topic to me, and I'd love to talk more about it, but sadly on YouTube, we gotta keep things a little bit more concise. If you'd like to hear more extended thoughts on this subject, please feel free to check out the Talos of Tech podcast, which is on iTunes, it's on SoundCloud, it's on Google Podcasts. Anywhere you want to listen to the podcast, it should be available. And if you enjoy it, make sure to write a review there as well. It helps us out a lot. And if you want to talk more about this as well with me personally, be sure to follow my Twitter or check out our Discord server where I try to stay as active as possible. This is your Apple Sheep here, and I will see you in the next one.